An apology without the bite of change is a hollow whisper, an illusion spun to keep the mind at ease. It's nothing more than a trick, a card up the sleeve, a clever game for those who wish to soothe without sacrifice, to promise without the pain of growth. A real apology lives and breathes, demands blood, insists on transformation, demands that something break to be rebuilt. But words alone? They are the weapon of manipulators, wielded not to mend but to pacify, to control the narrative without ever intending to face the consequences. To apologize and remain the same is to spit in the face of responsibility, to drape oneself in the cloak of humility while hiding a smirk beneath. It's the oldest trick, the sweetest poison, diluting accountability into nothing, fooling others into thinking that words alone can absolve. But there is no redemption without change, no forgiveness without the scars of effort, no real apology in the absence of action. Those who speak empty words seek only to manipulate, to use remorse as a mask for convenience, to keep the world guessing while they dance through life unaltered, unchallenged, unchanged. Change is the crucible, the burning ground where apologies prove their worth, where words turn into something more. Without change, an apology is a lie, a false peace, an illusion crafted to silence rather than heal. Real change costs. It shreds comfort, demands sacrifice, drags the soul through its own weaknesses until nothing of the old self remains. But those who apologize without this price, who seek forgiveness without change, are thieves, stealing compassion from those willing to believe. They play the part well, the contrite face, the solemn words, but in the end, it's manipulation, pure and simple. An unchanged apology is not an apology at all. It's an act of control, a way to pull strings while staying above suspicion. It's the art of the deceiver, a way to bend others to one's will without lifting a finger, using remorse as currency to buy time, to buy trust, to keep the world spinning in their favor. Real apologies are messy, raw, uncomfortable. They challenge the soul, tear down what was once held dear, demand that every part of the self is torn and reassembled into something stronger. But an empty apology avoids this path, keeping the apology pristine, untouched by the harsh fire of transformation. An apology without change is the ultimate insult, a mockery of real accountability. It's the mask worn by those who fear the weight of growth, the price of real redemption. They apologize not to make amends, but to weave a web, to keep others in orbit around their unchanging self. It is a carefully crafted illusion, and those who see through it know words alone are worthless. Only action, only the brutal work of change can give an apology weight, can make it something real. Without that, it's a hollow play, a manipulation dressed in virtue, a lie in the guise of sincerity. The need for closure is the mind's last, desperate grasp, a clawing at the remnants of something long dead. It's the soul's stubbornness, clinging to shadows in the hopes that some final explanation, some neatly wrapped conclusion, will bring peace. But closure is a ghost, a fantasy woven by those who cannot bear to move forward into the unknown. In reality, clinging to closure is the chain that binds, the poison that seeps into every thought, keeping you trapped in a memory loop, a twisted reflection of something that once was. It halts growth, chokes potential, reduces a mind capable of greatness to a slave of the past. Memory loops are prisons, intricately designed and expertly maintained by the self. Each time you revisit, each time you rewind, you're reinforcing those walls, allowing your soul to wander the same confined paths again and again. The mind becomes a graveyard, haunted by echoes that refuse to die, feeding on the poison of familiarity, drinking deeply from regret, anger, and loss. This need for answers, for understanding, is a trick, an illusion that keeps you from moving on, keeps you tethered to a reality that no longer exists. Closure is a crutch, a myth that holds you back, locking you in a cycle that goes nowhere, a slow, painful erosion of your spirit. Growth requires the courage to sever those ties, to leave questions unanswered, to let go of the need to make sense of every ending. The soul that obsesses over closure is a soul afraid of freedom, unwilling to walk into the unknown without a clear, definitive goodbye. But the real power lies in detachment, in leaving behind the weight of unfinished stories, in letting the past rest where it belongs, behind you. Seeking closure is often just another way of seeking control, a desperate attempt to have the last word, to shape what cannot be shaped, to relive what cannot be relived. It's a fool's game, a tragic loop, one that leaves you no closer to peace and further from your own future with every turn. Moving on without closure is the true test, a razor's edge that demands strength, demands the ability to live with ambiguity, to thrive in the face of unresolved endings. It's the warrior's path, to walk away without answers, to burn bridges that offer no return, to surrender to the unknown without a backward glance. Those who can master this, who can resist the siren call of memory loops, become unstoppable, freed from the chains of regret, immune to the poison of the past. They understand that closure is the luxury of those who do not seek greatness, who would rather be comforted by an illusion than face the raw, unfiltered reality of moving forward without answers. To seek closure is to be ensnared by shadows, to let ghosts dictate the course of your life. Real strength, real freedom, is found in leaving those shadows where they belong, in choosing growth over comfort, progress over understanding. The need for closure is a trap, one that ensnares the weak, those unwilling to embrace the mystery, the pain, the open-endedness of life. Only by stepping away, by refusing to engage with the endless loops of memory, can one truly move forward, unburdened, into a future crafted by one's own will, not haunted by the remnants of what has already ended. A bad relationship is the kind of pain that lingers, sharp and insidious, like standing barefoot on broken glass. Every moment spent in its grasp cuts deeper, bleeds the spirit dry, leaves scars that grow more jagged with each step you refuse to take. Staying is the easy choice, the passive decision, a slow, self-inflicted wound that keeps you bleeding under the illusion of comfort. The mind becomes numb to the pain, the heart adapts to the ache, until suffering becomes the familiar, the expected, a twisted sort of home. But that pain, that sharp edge of broken glass, will never dull. It only digs deeper, taking root, growing into something dark and twisted, a poison that permeates every thought, every breath, until nothing remains but fragments of who you once were. Walking away is not painless. It's a choice that sears, that strips the flesh from the bone, that burns with every step as you leave behind the shadows that once held you close. But that pain is different, pure, a fire that cleanses rather than consumes. To walk away is to acknowledge that healing is earned, that freedom costs. Every scar, every bruise from leaving, is a wound that will one day close, a mark that will fade as strength grows in its place. Leaving is not an escape. It's an act of war against the part of you that once settled, that once clung to shards of a shattered connection, hoping the broken could somehow be whole. Staying offers the illusion of safety, a twisted sense of stability, built on fractured glass, a place where every step is a gamble, every moment a choice between comfort and chaos. But real strength comes in choosing pain over paralysis, in stepping into the unknown with no promise of peace, only the certainty of freedom. Walking away means embracing the void, the emptiness that comes with leaving behind what no longer serves, what no longer fuels, what no longer deserves a place in your life. It is the pain of tearing oneself free, of shedding the weight of someone else's shadow, of reclaiming the soul piece by piece. Staying where the glass cuts, where the wounds never heal, is an act of surrender, a slow decay disguised as devotion. But those who walk away, who choose pain in pursuit of liberation, find something beyond survival. They find resilience, a strength that grows in the absence of dependence, a clarity sharpened by the fires of solitude. The hurt from leaving fades, the wounds close, the scars become reminders not of weakness, but of victory. A bad relationship is a prison, one where the door remains open, where the chains are self-imposed, where freedom lies just beyond the reach of those who fear the pain of healing. To leave is to embrace transformation, to let go of the safety of suffering, to trade the known agony for the wild, untamed, unknown. It is a journey that begins in pain, but leads to power, a path that hurts, but ultimately heals, a choice that severs the chains of a toxic comfort and forges a life where peace is earned, not given. In walking away, in leaving the broken glass behind, you step into a life unshackled, a world where every scar is a testament to your strength, your will, your refusal to settle for anything less than wholeness. Pretending a toxic relationship is anything but poison is the most insidious kind of exhaustion. It's a quiet, relentless drain, a slow bleed that saps every ounce of strength, and yet demands you wear the mask, hold the facade, act as though the darkness surrounding you is nothing but shadow play. The effort to maintain that illusion, to convince the world and yourself that the fire eating away at your spirit is warmth, is nothing short of self-betrayal. It's a role that drains every resource, steals every ounce of joy, a performance that requires you to erase parts of yourself just to keep the illusion intact. Living in that lie, feigning happiness, pretending that each day isn't a descent deeper into despair, is an act of self-destruction. It's like carrying a weight bound to your soul, a burden that grows heavier with every forced smile, every hollow reassurance, every time you say, "I'm fine." The lie becomes a cage, locking you in, stripping away your own ability to even see the bars. Every moment spent pretending is a moment surrendered to the toxicity that binds you, a slow suffocation under the guise of endurance. And the worst part, the lie begins to seep into your veins, poisoning every thought, every word, until you're lost in the illusion you yourself created. The exhaustion of pretending comes not just from the act itself, but from the betrayal of self that it requires. Each day is a battle, not just against the toxic pull of the relationship, but against the very part of you that knows you're lying, that knows this isn't living, but a form of dying. This deception drains the soul, erases authenticity, transforms every interaction into a charade, every moment into a struggle to maintain a reality that doesn't exist. It's a form of slavery, a life bound to the whims and poisons of another, a choice to remain in the darkness because the light demands too much honesty. The weight of pretense is the heaviest burden, an anchor that drags you down as you grasp at every sinking illusion, convincing yourself that staying afloat is enough. But pretending in a toxic relationship is to willingly drown in slow motion, to deny yourself the chance to breathe, to escape, to be free. It's not strength to stay and pretend, not bravery to wear a mask for the sake of appearances. Real strength lies in tearing off the mask, in facing the raw, unfiltered truth, in refusing to play a part in the performance that drains you. There is no freedom in the pretense, no salvation in the mask. To pretend that toxicity is anything less than what it is to deny the reality of your own pain, to ignore the wounds festering beneath the surface. The lie is a slow decay, a rot that spreads, that erodes, that consumes. Only by stripping away the pretense, by facing the unvarnished truth, can one begin to reclaim themselves, to step away from the performance, to walk into a life unbound by the chains of illusion. From this point forward, thinking isn't a luxury. It's survival. We're given minds that can tear through reality, that can question, dissect, rebuild. But so many choose not to use it, treating their brains like weights to carry, rather than weapons to wield. Thought is the sharpest blade you possess, the tool that separates those who move with purpose from those who drift, blind, deaf to the truths lurking in every corner. There's a reason we weren't born with rocks in our heads. For those who settle for ignorance might as well be stones themselves, hollow, aimless, unchanging. Thinking demands effort, demands discomfort, demands you turn your mind inward, twisting it against itself, seeing the flaws, the weaknesses, the lies you live by. Most fear thought because it's merciless, because it shows you who you are and what you lack. But those who embrace it, who wield it, find freedom that others only dream of. They see the traps, the illusions, the cages society sets in place to bind those who don't think, who follow without question, who accept without understanding. To think is to be dangerous, a threat to the quiet chains that keep people docile, manageable, predictable. And there's power in that danger, a force that turns the mind into something unbreakable. Thought separates the driven from the defeated, the conqueror from the conquered. Rocks may be solid, unyielding, but they're also stagnant, lifeless. A mind in motion is alive, relentless, always growing, adapting, evolving. Thinking is an act of rebellion, a refusal to accept the world as it is handed to you. Those who dare to think claim dominion over their lives. They refuse to be mere products of their circumstances. Thought is a fire that consumes ignorance, an alchemical process that transforms weakness into strength, fear into purpose. But those who shy away, who let their minds gather dust, choose to be prisoners in a world that rewards obedience over insight. The mind is a weapon, a tool of liberation, a bridge to potential that most will never cross. To think is to be human, in the fullest sense, to reject the passive, to push against the limits of comfort. It requires a courage that few possess, a willingness to confront the brutal, unyielding reality of self. But for those who embrace it, thought becomes a way out, a way forward, a way into realms others cannot even conceive. In a world of rocks, of minds that lie still, unchallenged, unused, the thinker stands alone, a force, a fire, an immovable will. From now on, thinking is your only option. The alternative is to surrender to a life shaped by others, to let the world dictate who you are and what you can become. Thought is not just survival, it's evolution, a process of continuous becoming, of shattering every limit imposed by ignorance. To think is to rise, to claim your place, to become more than just another face in the crowd. Emotions and thoughts are bound in a twisted dance, inseparable yet constantly at odds, shaping and distorting each other with every beat. To separate them would be to split the mind, to tear apart the very fabric of human experience. Emotions fuel thought, giving it color, intensity, direction. They are the silent currents beneath every decision, every impulse, pushing you toward choices you wouldn't dare make with reason alone. Thought, in turn, tries to control the tempest, to tame emotions' wild unpredictability, to channel it into something useful, something that aligns with purpose. But they are two sides of the same coin, one incomplete without the other. When emotions overtake, the mind loses its sharpness, its clarity. Thought becomes clouded, bending to the whims of feeling, turning reason into a mere servant of whatever storm is brewing within. Rage blinds, fear paralyzes, love consumes. But to ignore emotion is equally dangerous. Thought without emotion is hollow, sterile, devoid of the fire that drives real action, the kind of action that leaves marks, that changes things. The thinker who abandons feeling becomes a machine, calculating, yet disconnected, missing the depth that only emotion can bring. A mind without emotion lacks purpose. A heart without reason lacks control. To master the mind is to master both. To wield emotion with precision, to let thought direct the power of feeling like a weapon, aimed and intentional. Together, they form the complete mind, a force capable of seeing clearly and feeling deeply, of making decisions that strike with both wisdom and impact. They aren't opposites. They're allies, intertwined in a symbiotic relationship that gives life depth, gives choice weight. The greatest power lies in the balance, in the understanding that neither can truly function without the other, that real strength comes from harnessing both without letting either dominate. And when it comes to apology, when emotion feigns regret while thought hides intent, manipulation emerges. An apology that springs only from emotion, untamed by reason, is nothing more than self-indulgence, a momentary release without real intent. It's the illusion of change, a tool for those who wish to escape the consequences of their actions without bearing the weight of true transformation. Emotional function twisted, cognitive function corrupted. They blend to form the ultimate deception, an apology without change, a manipulation wrapped in sincerity. The cost of avoiding difficult decisions and dodging hard conversations is a slow descent into chaos, a collapse that creeps in the shadows, seeping into every crack left unchecked. Failing to act, to confront, to stand at the crossroads of choice is not a harmless delay. It's a quiet betrayal of self. Ignoring these moments, leaving words unspoken, allows wounds to fester, relationships to decay, and opportunities to dissolve, all while the silence poisons every corner of your existence. Each avoidance is a decision itself, a choice that leads to a path where consequences are no longer in your control. The effects become irreversible, a web spun not by fate, but by the very choice to do nothing. These decisions, these conversations, demand strength, a willingness to tear down what is comfortable, to unravel the illusions that make life easy, but empty. Avoiding them keeps you safe, perhaps, but at a cost paid in missed growth, in unresolved tension, in a life that quietly slips into mediocrity. The difficult decision is the knife that cuts through the fog, the path that demands sacrifice, but rewards with clarity, with freedom. Refusing this path, shying away from the hard truths, is not protection. It is surrender. A surrender to weakness, to passivity, to a fate crafted by fear rather than intent. To sidestep difficult conversations is to become a bystander in your own life, allowing things to unfold without purpose, without direction. Every avoided word, every swallowed truth, chips away at integrity, at the core of who you are. These conversations define boundaries, create understanding, and forge the connections that matter. Without them, relationships stagnate, fall apart, and ultimately fade, leaving a hollow ache where there should have been resolution. Avoidance creates gaps that time will never fill. It breeds resentment, fosters misunderstanding, and leaves behind a legacy of regret. The silence builds, festers, becomes a wall that separates, isolates, until all that remains are fragments of something that could have been saved, could have been made whole. Every choice left unmade, every conversation dodged, is a manipulation in itself, a pretense that things can remain the same, a lie that delays the inevitable. Life does not wait for comfort. Life demands action, courage, a willingness to break the surface and confront the hidden. For avoiding these choices is no different from the hollow apology. It is an illusion, a mask for the unwillingness to grow. And in the end, it leads to the same empty place, a manipulation of self, of others, a cycle that leaves nothing resolved, nothing real, only the lingering ache of what could have been. Sitting in the shadows, staring at wounds, wallowing in the sting. This is the slow decay, the self-inflicted rot of those who refuse to heal. Wounds do not close with attention alone. They fester, they deepen. They infect every part of you while you sit, transfixed by your own misery. The world doesn't pause to nurse your pain. Time marches on, indifferent, leaving you behind, stagnant, if all you do is cradle your injuries without a will to mend them. Healing demands action, demands that you rise, that you tend to the cuts, with intention, with purpose. There's no magic in time alone. Healing is a brutal, conscious process, a choice to face pain head-on rather than to wallow in it. Time, the silent beast, cares nothing for your comfort. It erodes everything that stands still, wears away the edges, until you're left with a hollow shell, a memory of what was whole. To simply watch your wounds is a passive surrender, a slow acceptance of weakness. Bandages do not apply themselves. Healing doesn't happen in silence. It is a war, a deliberate, often painful reclamation of strength. You must stitch every gash, salve every scar, not with pity, but with determination, with the resolve to overcome. Those who believe in passive healing are fooling themselves, turning scars into excuses, wrapping their pain around them like a shield. But true healing, it demands engagement, not retreat. There is no glory in lingering pain, no honor in suffering simply for suffering's sake. To refuse healing, to reject the work it requires, is to imprison yourself, to place yourself at the mercy of wounds that never close. Time doesn't heal. It only moves. Healing is the warrior's path, a commitment to growth, to resilience, to transforming pain into strength. Sitting in suffering, staring at the damage, is an act of self-betrayal, a slow manipulation that whispers you're helpless, that waiting alone will save you. But real salvation, real strength, comes only to those willing to bear the pain of restoration, to face themselves not as victims, but as victors, to leave wounds unattended, to wait for healing that will never come on its own, is no different than the hollow apology. It is a deception, a manipulation wrapped in self-pity. Lingering in suffering is a refusal to rise, a surrender to the shadows that feeds only on stagnation. Every unhealed wound left raw and untended is a tether, a shackle that binds you to the past, feeding on the energy you could use to propel forward. The mind becomes obsessed, transfixed, cycling endlessly through its pain, replaying memories that bleed. But staring at scars and torn flesh is not healing. It is indulgence in weakness, an anchor to wounds that will never close on their own. Pain demands a choice: to confront it, to dress it, or to drown beneath its weight. To heal is an act of rebellion, a decision to defy the lingering grip of suffering. Time doesn't reach down and pull you up. Time only moves, pushing you further away from your own potential as you sit, immobilized by the comfort of self-pity. Real healing is violent in its own way. It forces you to acknowledge your scars, to face every dark corner of your pain, and to choose something beyond it. This process is not gentle, not patient, and it demands that you strip away every illusion, every excuse, every lie you tell yourself to justify staying broken. It's not easy, but no liberation ever is. To believe that time alone will cure you is to buy into a dangerous lie, a soothing tale told by those who fear the reality of their own strength. Healing requires confrontation, engagement, the will to stitch your wounds with your own hands. To sit in suffering, to allow pain to define you, is not strength. It is surrender. Healing is the work of a mind forged in resilience, a mind willing to tear itself apart to rebuild. There is no place for excuses, for empty promises, for superficial apologies. Real healing is a brutal, disciplined art, an assertion that you will not be defined by what has harmed you, but by the strength you summon to rise above it. Wounds that linger are wounds that control. Every unhealed scar, every raw memory, is a chain that binds you to an unfinished past. But you can choose to dress the wounds, to bear the pain of restoration, to break free from the victim's cage and stand whole, unbowed, unbroken. Your future self stands in the shadows, a figure carved from every choice you're too afraid to make, every step you refuse to take. He waits, watching with a silent fury as you linger, as you wallow, chained by a past that has long since decayed. He knows what you could become, but he knows the price, the effort, the ruthlessness it demands. Every day you stay bound to the past is a day stolen from him, a betrayal of the strength he could wield, the clarity he could know. He is not some distant stranger. He is the potential buried beneath your hesitation, a force that grows darker, angrier, with every moment wasted. He doesn't need your apologies, your excuses, or your half-hearted attempts to move forward. What he demands is action, a ruthless severance from the weight of yesterday. To him, every unhealed scar, every wound left festering, is a refusal to honor what he could become. He waits for you to cut loose the chains, to make the hard choices, to turn your back on everything that drags you down. For in your hesitation lies his prison, his silent confinement to a life of unfulfilled potential. He will not forgive you for wasting his time, for indulging in weakness when strength is within your grasp. Move on, not because the past deserves to be left behind, but because he deserves to be set free. The future self does not dwell in pity, in regret, in unhealed pain. He is forged by what you're willing to do now, by the boldness to face what holds you back and tear through it. Every excuse you cling to, every comfort you choose over challenge, is a betrayal of him, a choice to keep him trapped, unformed, in the prison of your indecision. He is waiting for you to become the person who no longer carries the dead weight of old wounds, who has risen above the pain, who has transformed. Move forward with a purpose, with the fury of one who knows what's at stake. To linger in the past, to settle for unfulfilled promises, is to deny your future self the chance to exist. Apologies and regrets mean nothing to him. He lives on the other side of your decisions, of your ability to leave behind what no longer serves. To keep him waiting, to deny him freedom, is the ultimate manipulation, a hollow apology wrapped in indecision. Your future self waits in silence, carrying the weight of your unmade choices, the potential stifled beneath layers of inertia. He is patient, yet his patience is laced with the agony of unrealized purpose, of paths left unexplored because you chose comfort over courage. Each time you fail to move forward, to face what lies ahead, you etch deeper scars into his being, marking him with the weakness you refuse to overcome. He watches, hoping you'll sever yourself from the chains of familiarity, from the cycle of repeating yesterday's mistakes. For he knows that the life meant for him cannot flourish in the shadows of your hesitation. Every decision left unmade, every wound left untreated, keeps him caged in a reality that shrinks with each passing day. He is not waiting for salvation. He's waiting for you to step into the fire, to endure the pain that transformation demands. He is forged not by empty promises or idle dreams, but by action, by sacrifice, by the relentless pursuit of a life unburdened by the ghosts of your past. For him to breathe, to stand in his own power, you must act now with ruthless precision, with the unyielding drive to leave behind all that no longer serves you. He deserves a life built on more than apologies. He deserves a future crafted from deliberate, unrelenting choices. Imagine his rage, his sorrow, as you remain tethered to patterns that betray him, patterns that hold him in stasis while time marches on, indifferent to your pain, indifferent to your stagnation. You owe him more than this, more than regret and excuses. To step forward without fear, to rise beyond your past, is the ultimate offering, the only way to honor the person he could become. Anything less than full commitment, anything short of decisive action, binds him to the fate of an existence lost in the inertia of what could have been. He does not need your comfort. He needs your fire, your willingness to break through the walls of your hesitation with the force of conviction. To fail him is to abandon your own potential, to choose weakness over strength, indulgence over mastery. Your future self is not some abstraction, not a fantasy. He is the embodiment of every moment you could have spent building, healing, striving. He does not need an apology, for apologies are as hollow as they are effortless. What he needs, what he demands, is for you to turn your back on what holds you down, to become the force that breaks cycles, that moves forward not with hesitation, but with the grim resolve to honor him by shedding every limitation, every lie, every excuse. An apology without change is manipulation. An apology to your future self without action is betrayal, and you don't ever want to betray yourself. To be half-loved, half-prioritized, is to willingly drain the vibrancy from your own existence, to let others siphon away pieces of your soul until you're left hollow. waiting, barely a shadow of what you could be. Those who only offer pieces, who make you a convenience instead of a priority, are robbing you not only of time, but of the fullness you deserve. You should be too consumed by the fire of your own life, by the drive that pulls you forward, to ever allow such lukewarm affections to touch you. To settle for half measures is to betray yourself, to dim your own flame, just to fit within the boundaries others have set for you. Life is not meant to be carved up and rationed by the indifferent, by those who give only when it's easy, when it costs them nothing. Your soul should be drenched in its own intensity, overflowing to the point where anything less than full, unwavering devotion simply falls away, unworthy of your energy. To accept half love, half priorities, is to shrink yourself to fit into the lives of those who do not see you, who do not honor the expanse of what you are. It's self-abandonment in its most sinister form, a surrender to the expectations of others who keep you at arm's length, giving you only scraps of attention when it suits them. Imagine a life where every action, every interaction is forged from the depths of purpose, where you demand and give nothing less than what consumes the heart entirely. Half love cannot survive in the presence of such energy. Half-hearted efforts fall to ash in the intensity of someone too full of life to be bound by mediocrity. There's no room for tentative steps for those who only reach out when the cost is low. To accept being a mere option in another's life is a betrayal of your own spirit, a choice to live small, to dim the light that should burn with unrelenting brilliance. You were not made to fit within the comfortable spaces of others' lives, to be chosen only when it's easy, only when it demands no sacrifice. To apologize for demanding more, to stay quiet when you deserve everything, is no different than self-manipulation, a surrender that diminishes you while asking for nothing in return.